Hey everyone, I'm Josie.
And I'm Vickie. Today we're going to be taking our sexual education little by slowly.
So this week we wanted to talk about our sexual health education, um, the way we the way we were taught sexual health throughout our lives, and the way it impacts the way we view either ourselves or how we are still learning things. Because I know definitely for me, my sexual health education wasn't that comprehensive, and for me that was very noticeable when I spent a year teaching sex ed, and a lot of the content I was learning for the first time as I was going to teach to my students, which shouldn't be that way, but here we are.
Yeah, I liked this topic when Jocelyn brought it up because I often think back to the sex ed courses that I had in, I want to say that they started in fifth grade and then we did fifth, sixth, and yeah, fifth and sixth grade. And my middle school started it because we had a couple students in the past graduate from eighth grade pregnant. So I think that was the only reason why they started it. And if that hadn't enough happened, I'm not too sure if they would have done that. But I agree with Jocelyn. I myself have not taught sex ed courses, but I find that when I learn new things, I'm just like, I'm 24. Maybe I should have known this already.
I think it's interesting when I talk to other Chicago friends who, went to school in Chicago, and I told them, like, yeah, I taught sex ed in Chicago, and they're like, but it's interesting because the curriculum is really comprehensive now because they've like fought for that, and they start, like, I've taught sex ed for students as young as kindergarten, just getting them used to that topic. So that way by the time they're in fifth grade, they're familiar with the language, and then we go a little bit more in detail per grade. And so I thought that was really interesting, especially because, like, I was just talking about this with like a friend earlier this week, and she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's what the curriculum looks like now. It's better. But then I also think about, like, dang, we are 24, and there are just like a lot of things that, like, we don't know. And for me, what's it called, through that role, I've gotten more comfortable with my doctor, and like telling my doctor, like saying, like, hey, this doesn't feel right, or like, or just like explaining, because like I have like at least that baseline knowledge of like knowing how my body should work, and I feel like that's something I didn't have before. And so I feel after that experience, I feel more comfortable with my doctor and being able to speak with her and being able to like ask the questions that I need. I don't think I would necessarily have had that without this experience and without that knowledge, and that's scary. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way. That the more, like, that feels like one of the main reasons why you should be like well versed in sexual education is to be able to communicate with your doctor and like know the correct language to use so they themselves know how to diagnose you, or how to help you or where to specifically look. But for some reason, that benefit of knowing sex ed isn't the first thing that came to my mind or my mind at all. So that's really interesting. And I'm excited for you that you
Yeah.
have that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it excites me too, and that was a benefit that I didn't think about until I like started going back to my doctor, and I felt more comfortable with it. And I was like, why is this? And I'm like, oh, because I know what I'm asking for. Like, I don't have to
I'm
like beat around the bush.
gonna add the little brunch.
I think that's a big benefit, but I think another big benefit is just even for our own like sexual desires and stuff like that. I know, I think within Chicago, at least, I've heard that they've been wanting to make curriculum that is more geared towards like sexual pleasure and sexual like liberations, and like I think that's really important too. And like knowing our own bodies and knowing, like, hey, sex shouldn't hurt, or you shouldn't feel uncomfortable, because I think that's always been like the very like the assumption, because I know when I would teach, like, a lot of students would be like, oh yeah, it hurts, and I'm like, I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah. And so I think when talking about sex ed, it's not just about like knowing what an STI is or knowing like how to not get pregnant, but it's also about like your own pleasure, being able to advocate for your own body and being able to like understand what is okay and what is not. And like, yeah.
Yeah. I like that you said that, because if I'm thinking back on the sex ed classes that I had in middle school, they used a lot of like scare tactics. So they would show us really gross pictures of STDs and STIs, and like just to scare us. They'd be like, okay, everyone, this is what's gonna happen if you have sex, like don't have sex. And then it was just a lot of like none of this will happen if you just don't have sex. Like that is like the way that they explained it. And they even took us, I wish I remembered the place, but it was like we had one in 6th grade where it was actually at the school I was at, and then another one in 5th grade where we took a bus to like an external location that specifically taught sex ed classes. And I wish I knew the name of that place, but that's a place where they have like stadium style seats, and then like a really big projection of like all the really scary like genital ports and like blue waffles that they would like show everyone to like scare them.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thinking about, okay, side story. In elementary school, we had a track and field day. Fifth graders had a track and field day. I was a runner. And so we put on our yellow t-shirts and we had little numbers to put on our chests. And my teacher looks at me and she goes, ladies, just be careful and make sure you don't put it directly over your mountains. And I was like, what the fuck? And by third grade, I had already gotten like my period and I was already starting to grow like boobs. So by fifth grade, I was like chilling out here. And
Mhm.
I hated having boobs. I hated it. I would try to like press them down as much as I could. And so to have this teacher look at me and say that, I was like, what? I was like, why would you say that to me? And that
Mhm.
memory was just unlocked in my mind right now. Thinking back on my own like sexual health education. So in elementary school, I went to school in Nevada. And they just did like a very like intro, like, hey, your bodies are going to be changing. You're going to be going to puberty. Let's give you some sexual health education. And both years, fourth and fifth grade, they gave us permission forms and you had to have your parents sign it to agree. And I was a forgetful child, so both years I forgot to give it to my mom to sign. So then I just had to sit outside while everyone else got to learn. And my mom would have like definitely let me be in those classes because my mom was not about to like teach me herself. Like my mom gave me one of those chicken soup of the soul for girls books.
Yeah.
She just like left it in my room one day and she was like, yeah, your body's gonna be changing, read that. And I was not prepared for the images that were gonna be in there. I was like,
Yeah, I have to find the name of it because I recently sent to you the exact book that my mom gave me. So if I'm looking to the side, I'm getting the name of it. But yeah, I completely resonate with that experience because my mom gave my sister and I the same book. So she gave it to my sister first because she's older, and then after she gave it to me.
it's the one from Twitter, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that one. That one. She gave me two. She gave me that one and then the chicken soup one. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this information. It's a lot. Um, and again, I wasn't comfortable with it. Like I understood what periods were. I understood that I was going to get one, but when I got one, I didn't like. Even though I knew it, I didn't talk about it enough to like understand that that's what was happening right at that moment.
Okay, Twitter is telling me that it was an American Girl doll
Mm,
book, which that sounds about right,
yeah.
because although I didn't have the really nice American Girl dolls, I had the other ones that were for like really rough children, where like the joints bent, and if you like threw it to the floor, it would not break, because I was a rough child. But yeah, those books, like had really detailed illustrations and stuff on like the ways that your body was going to change, and like teaching you how to like properly take showers for like hygiene and stuff like that. So I mean, I appreciate her giving me the books because it like let me digest the information on my own time. And I think that I genuinely would not at that stage in life would have wanted to have that conversation with my mom. Now I would feel comfortable having a conversation like that with my mom, like really casually. But I
Mhm.
think at the age she gave it to me, I would have been like, no. So
Yeah. I think I would have, for me, I feel a little differently. I feel like I would have liked my mom to talk to me about it just because like it scared me. And so sometimes I would look through it and I would get like my skin would cross and then I just stop. And so I feel like if my mom would have like sat down with me, but I also think about like um my mom's own like sexual health education, and if what you're explaining now, imagine what it would have been like 20 years before that. I don't think they would
mhm.
have gone that in depth either. Um and I know like her mom was like pretty strict whenever it came to like dating and like sex and anything like that. So I don't know what that conversation would have looked like with my mom, but
Yeah, I honestly think the conversation with my mom would have been like perfectly fine because she's always been the type of person who says that like her mom didn't give her really good sex education and made her like feel bad about it. So she was going to make sure that that was like the one thing that she like told us about and made sure that we understood so we could be safe and so we could like protect ourselves. So it
yeah.
probably would have been a really great, healthy conversation. It was just me not necessarily wanting to have that conversation with my mom at the moment.
I understand that. I think because of that, like I've decided that if I ever do have children, I want to be able to give them like a healthy sex ed education, like let them, of course, like let them of course like participate in the classes, but also have that conversation with us one on one, because sometimes there are questions that you might not feel comfortable asking like in the classroom, or like I just think it's important to like see, I guess like I think it's important to also see your mother as a sexual being, and like to see like what those experiences have been with like her body, because I feel like a lot of times growing up I felt very like alone because people would talk around things, and like I never really got like that direct conversation with anything. It was always just kind of like a, we're not gonna use the word, but you know what we're talking about,
Mhm.
was the way they would talk to me about it. So I was like, so no. And it felt very shameful, and that's not what I want for myself now or in the future.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I'm loving the place that you're in now.
Yeah, I feel
So,
really happy with the place I am in now. And I feel like, again, if I hadn't like taught sex ed, I don't think I would have like understood as much about my body, or understood as much of like, yeah, I don't know what else I was gonna say, but or like I think in the past like year or two, like my mindset has shifted more positively when it comes to like my body and my own sexual health. So
yeah.
that's cool.
I feel like in I feel like in my house, um, it didn't feel taboo. It just felt like you'll know more when you're older. So like my mom loves Sex in the City and I love it now too, and we watch it together. But whenever it would come out, she'd like kick us out the room and be like, "Oh, it's grown up TV. Like you can't watch it." I'd be like, "Okay." I'd be annoyed because I wanted to keep like hanging out with her, but then I'd just leave. Or it's the same with like we weren't allowed to curse and we called alcohol grown up juice. So it was just like little things like that where it didn't necessarily feel like something we couldn't talk about. It just felt like something that like when the time came, there would be a conversation, which is true. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. So kind of, I don't know. I enjoyed the amount of time that my parents let me just be like, just like a little kid.
I think that's important too, because I think I was watching a video the other day where like this mom, she asked two children. One of them is like 14, the other one's like 8. And like the 14-year-old had a question. And so she looks at her 8-year-old and she's like, hey, I think you should leave this room. I think you should leave the room because what I'm about to explain might make you feel a lot of things really fast that I don't think you're ready to like feel and process. And so what you're saying is like definitely like true. Like you're like some things like yes, it's important to know, but it's also like important to understand what age level can handle what.
I've seen that video too. I thought that it was really interesting because I was like, that is true. I didn't think about that because so many times there's so many like videos online that is just like making sure that little kids like know how to name their parts and like know all of the stuff that like you would supposedly supposed to know at like 18 or 14 like that. And in the comments, people are like, oh, the kid's too young. It's like da da da. And I feel like I agree to an extent. I agree, like you were saying in the video, there's certain information that I think like you're you're gonna know and I'm gonna need you to know, but like maybe just like enjoy being a little kid for now.
Yeah, yeah. But I do agree that like again, like I think it's important to like introduce concepts, at least the word, and then later on, right? Because you never
Like
know. Like
gradually. Yeah.
I watched this show called I'm Sorry, and I think it's really funny. But I was watching it last night actually, and in the episode last night, Andrea Savage had like hired a nanny. She comes home and the nanny says, "Oh yeah, Amelia's front tushy was itchy, so she showed me it," or like something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and the mom looks at her and she's like, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And she said, "Yeah, front tushy." and and the mom was just like so upset because she was like, she is 20 years old. Why is she using the word front tushy?
Mhm.
Like, and she was talking about how confusing that would be. Like, oh, you could stick it in my tushy. Oh, not my back one, the front tushy.
Oh no.
And so that's the gist of the episode that I watched last night. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, like that's why it's important to know to use the word, the correct
Yeah.
words. And like I understand like why she felt like upset. Like I think I'd feel upset too. I'm like, why are you using that like word?
I completely agree. That's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but I was gonna say that it was the same thing as like calling the bathroom the potty, like with little kids. And I've been really like stuck on like for years. If I ever decide to have kids, I'm gonna make sure that they call the bathroom instead of the potty because I want these children to know the proper words for things so they're not walking around going, I'm gonna go to the potty. This is my front butt. Like I want them to know like what things are called.
Right. Right. And again, that takes me back to like the whole like I think that's why it's important also just for you to be able to know, to be able to go to the doctor and say like, hey, something's wrong with this part of me or something's wrong with this part of me, and saying it very directly and very like I think it just
That's
makes
right.
it easier.
Yeah. I'm just imagining a 20-year-old going in to the gyno and being like, okay, you gonna look at my front butt now? Oh geez. My my aunt is a nurse who a labor and delivery nurse, but I think now she works in a clinic and that still works with labor and delivery. But she always has these really interesting stories of these women who come in who are pregnant and don't like are not well versed in their bodies. And she's always like super disappointed and she like sits there and like explains it to them. And she's like, no one knows these things. And I don't know, every time she would tell me, it would always seem so wild. But the older I got and the more people I met, especially in college, I was like, oh, we really know nothing about this.
Oh, it was the other day when you and Jazz had mentioned that thing about what was it, pregnancy? And like the baby being
Yeah,
able to open the eyes in the womb, like, yeah, y'all didn't know that.
yes. Um, me and my friend Jasmine, Jocelyn's roommate as well, we went, well, Jasmine is Jocelyn's roommate, not Jocelyn's roommate came to. That was confusing sentence. But anyway, we went to the Science and Industry Museum to see the Marvel exhibit. And then while we were there, we walked around and looked at the other stuff too. And we walked into that little section. It's the Science and Industry Museum in Chicago. So if you've ever been there, there's like a section where they show like the different stages of the baby and how it looks in the pregnancy. And then also in the back, there's a video that shows how a baby forms and gives you all of this information. And we were really chill and really vibing with the video until they showed that the baby likes to taste the amniotic fluid and also blinks in the water. And we were like, oh, the baby is too sentient. We are now freaked out. And then after that, we were just like, okay, I don't know if babies are for me. They're cute from far away, but this is kind of scary. So yeah. And then we came back to their place and told Jocelyn, and she was like, how do you not know this?
And again, the only reason I know it is because whenever I would have to teach a lesson, I'd be like, oh, what's that? So then I'd like I would just have all this stuff in my brain in case like somebody had a question because I wanted to be able to answer it. And for me now, I'm at a place where like I assume it's common knowledge and I know it's not. I know it's not, and I have to like bring myself back a little bit sometimes. I'm like, oh, that's not common knowledge. Yeah, but I'm surprised that that's what it took for y'all to second guess motherhood. For me, what makes me second guess motherhood is giving birth and having to shit on the table. That's what makes me second guess.
There's so many other things that have made me question ever wanting kids, and one of them is the fact that your milk ducts can move over to your armpit and you can start secreting milk from your armpits, and it can become incredibly painful.
Okay, that's reason number 2 for me now.
That was the fact that like I was like, okay, we're not gonna do that. Yeah, they also at the Science and Industry Museum showed a video where it was basically a screen where you can take a stylus, because COVID precautions, and move it and adjust it to the month of pregnancy that the mom was in, and then you can see the way that the organs inside of her body move around. And if you went all the way to 9 months, her bladder was literally flat. Like it was just so smashed, and all of the rest of her organs were shoved so far up here. We're like,
That's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think right now that you're bringing that up, I think it wasn't until last year that I realized that a baby does not grow inside like your literal stomach.
You said that was last year that you found this out?
Okay. Yeah. I just thought it grew right there, right next to the food.
I knew at least that much.
I did not.
I feel like the more I think back, the more I think about how some of the random stuff I didn't know, but there was a lot of people in my life who were like, that I was like around a lot, who like knew a lot about like the female anatomy and like sex ed. Like definitely like my aunt, who was a labor and delivery nurse, now that I'm thinking about it, like she'd come to barbecues and just like casually sit there and like tell us stories and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of wild because some people wouldn't have those conversations at all. And she's like talking about this kind of stuff at like a family barbecue. And like it's the same with my mom. Like we'd have conversations like that, like just eating dinner at the like kitchen table.
I think that's really cool, and really cool that you've been able to be exposed to like those conversations, because just important.
Yeah.
For people to talk about it, like really, you're like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah. I still don't know a lot though. I still am like, what are we doing? We're still learning little by slowly.
Yes, definitely still learning. It's definitely still learning,
yeah. Every time I learn a new fact, I'm just like
yeah. So I moved a lot growing up. I've lived in New Jersey, Nevada, Virginia, all different places. Again, elementary school me didn't get to sit in the sex ed stuff because I'm a forgetful person and I didn't ask my mom to sign it. But what I was going to say, and then we came to high school, And I was still in Nevada then, and again, very much fear tactics. Like, here are some images. Okay, cool. Don't have sex, and here's like a very traumatic video of all the things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just like crying afterwards. I was like, it seems so awful. And then Virginia, I don't think I really learned any sex ed there, which it's Virginia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I remember learning anything there. And so I feel like there's a lot of gaps. I had a lot of gaps in my like education there. I don't know. I kind of wish there was just like a full-on comprehensive sex ed nationwide. Um,
Yeah. And it didn't vary so much by state.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because some states are abstinence only. Some states just don't talk about it.
Yeah, 100%.
I think at the end of the day, I just think everyone should have the knowledge.
They should. I honestly don't believe that abstinence only works, because if you don't know anything, when you eventually do end up having sex, you're going to be so confused. And then all the things that you didn't want to happen that they showed in the scary video have a higher probability of happening.
You don't know how to prevent it. You don't know how to, like, yeah.
So how did you end up getting into teaching sex ed to K through 12? Yeah.
So I did a year of service, and I was interested in sexual health, and I was interested in sexual health because in DePaul, at DePaul, I did a service learning program called Take Back the Halls. And in that program, I worked in the high school, and we taught teen dating violence. And so I really liked working with youth, and I really liked working with youth around that topic. So when it came to doing my year of service after I graduated, they asked me what my interests were, and working with teens and doing that kind of work was what I had listed, and the closest thing they found for me was teaching sex ed. And so I applied, did the interview, the clinic liked me, and I ended up teaching there. And so I was based in a elementary school, which went from K through 8th, and then sometimes I would go into some high schools. So it was really fun being able to do the trainings and being able to and learn this content and learn how to deliver it to students of different ages. And that's still very much a topic I'm interested in today. And it's something I look into in my grad program now. So that's cool. For my final, we are doing like a project on reproductive justice like policies, and mine's going to be centered around sex ed policies. So
hey,
exciting.
That is exciting. I want to read it. I want to see it.
Shy.
Understood.
It's okay. We'll just do it. And I think that's something I still want to do in my career and future, is still continue to teach sex. And yeah, because I think it's really valuable, and I like working with youth, the youth.
The youth.
So in elementary school, like I mentioned, like I got my period. I started going through puberty pretty early on, and the rest of my friends were not. So I was just very insecure about like my body and like what was happening. And my mom had given me this book, like I think I was like maybe like a few months before. So like I had like kind of like a grasp of what was happening, but it was still like, dang. And then when I would talk to like my family members, they'd be like, but you're little. And I'm like, well, I don't know, like it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
My body's doing this thing, so here we are. I can't stop it now.
That is true.
Yeah, but I was like, what, like 8, 9 years old, and I was like, what are we doing? And the rest of my friends didn't really end up going through like puberty or anything like that till like 12 or 13. And I was like,
Wait, you were 8 or 9 in 5th grade?
I said third grade.
3rd grade?
That's, but by the time I got to 5th grade, I had boobs already. And that's when my teacher decided to
Got it.
subtly, but not subtly embarrass me. And I was like,
Noted.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, since I didn't get to sit in those like sex ed classes that they were doing, I was like, I don't know what y'all know.
We don't have the same information.
No, don't.
It's pretty interesting. Yeah, no, I got mine in 7th grade. And by that time, everybody else was already like fully flourished and amazing. And I was just like, why isn't it happening to me? So yeah, very opposite ends of the spectrum.
I think something I would have also like loved to know was like knowing that puberty can happen like at any age. Like it doesn't just happen like 1 or 2 ages. It's a range.
Yeah.
And like understanding that's okay and normal. It's just what your body wants to do.
It's true, yeah. I feel like that's something that I would personally want to learn more about on why it happens at different ages. And yeah, just like why it happens at different ages. Because I think that was something that bugged me as a child because I was hella flat chested, even in 7th grade. I don't think I started getting boobs until I was a freshman in high school. So it just was a little upsetting to be so flat chested and then to get my period so quote unquote late because everybody else had gotten theirs like in 5th or 6th grade already.
Yeah. I had like I said, by 5th grade, I already had like my boobs, and my mom, she would get me bras and stuff like that. And she would tell me, oh, don't wear your bra to sleep at night, because she was saying that the little cup section thing would make them stop growing or make them be a little bit smaller. So I would purposely wear my bra at night because I
I
hated
saw that coming.
yeah, I purposely wore my my bra because I hated having them so much. I hated looking at them, and so every morning I'd wake up and look down. I'm like, yeah, I think you look smaller today. But now I know that like wearing a bra at night isn't gonna impact their growth, or it isn't gonna shrink them. Yeah, but I woke up every morning delusional. But I was like, yeah, they're smaller today. I feel comfortable.
Yeah, it was just two opposite problems. I was in a whole other city wishing for just a little bit of your boobs.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny because I think normally me and you have like, we're all like on the same, but today we're like
Yeah, that is crazy. I was thinking about that a little, about how like opposite our experiences in this situation are, and
yeah,
it's just interesting to think about.
yeah, going from like purity and then even looking at like the way we were taught and like how comfortable our families were.
Mhm.
Because like I said, my family was not comfortable about it. And my grandma, I remember one day my grandma was talking to my older cousin because I think she had stained. And then my grandma was trying to tell her like, oh, like you should wear your pad like this. And by that time I had already gotten my period, but I was like younger. So I was looking at my grandma and I was like, what are y'all talking about? And then my grandma was like, oh, you don't. And then my grandma just looked at me and she was like, you don't need to know this. And I was like, what? And then my dad was like, no, I think you should tell her.
I feel like, no, this is important information. Please include her.
Yeah. But I guess that's something else too. My dad, he knew all about that. Like he was not shy about it. And I think it's a kind of, I don't know if it's like a stereotypical dad thing where they're like, oh, period. But my dad was never like that. He was just kind of like, okay, go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay. And as a result, like my brother's like really comfortable like I'm really comfortable like speaking about like my period or like my body around my brother, and like vice versa. And I like that me and my brother have like that relationship, because he like knows, and like whenever he's like with his friends who are girls, he's like I know what y'all talking about, I know what y'all go through. Yeah. I think it was like 2 years ago that I was talking to my brother, and he had been with his boyfriend for a while, and I was like, hey Carlos, and he was like, what? And I was like, you know, just because you can't get a woman pregnant, you still have to wear a condom, right? Because I was really concerned that no one was gonna tell him.
Uh-huh.
I was really concerned that no one was gonna tell him, because I also think like within like sex ed, like normally when you're told to wear like a condom or anything like that, it's to prevent pregnancies. But I'm like, there's other reasons you should be wearing a condom too.
Yes.
And like, I don't think my parents would have told him. So I was just like, hey, like, do you know this? Because again, he was in Delaware at the time. I don't think Delaware was going to tell him. So I was like, me,
Hmm.
hello.
What did he say?
Huh?
What did he say?
In that moment in time, he said, sister, please stop talking to me.
Oh no.
But I think it was just like his first time like encountering such a conversation, so I think he got like shy. But then like a year later, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna get STI tested today, and I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
And that's how we are, like with me and my cousins, like we tell each other when we're gonna get like tested, and we try to like tell each other like, hey, maybe you should do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that I have like at least that relationship with like my cousins and like my brother, that we're able to talk about like the experiences that we have, because that wasn't like what we grew up with. So I think that's very nice.
That is really nice. I have a similar relationship with my sister. I think she did that to me when we were younger, and I did the same thing. Like, sister, I don't want to have this conversation right now. Please step back. But then now it's kind of like it's definitely more comfortable, and we've had multiple conversations about that. And it's not something that is like really formal. People just text each other and make jokes and stuff. So
I think sometimes it's just like about like our own comfort, and like it's just based off when we find comfort. But see, there we go. Daisy, me and Daisy again. You and Carlos down.
yeah, different wavelengths.
Yeah.
There, down there.
Was there anything else you wanted to hit on?
I think so. I think this was a nice conversation.
It has been a nice conversation. Well, nice.
It felt like very wholesome, but like wholesome in a different way. But I think wholesome is a good word to use.
Yeah, I agree. It did feel nice and wholesome, and it felt like not like warm, but it felt like, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt happiness talking about this. And I don't think, again, like I don't think 2 or 3 years ago I would have felt the same. I think I would have felt really uncomfortable with the topic, and felt, yeah. And so I hope that my future only brings more positive conversations revolving my sexual health, and that it also just brings that I get more knowledge, and that I am able to again feel more comfortable with myself. And so yeah.
I wish the same for you. I like this conversation too because it reminds me of what you've said multiple times. That the first time you've said it was just like, But then now, like, I feel like I think about that more often, about that we're still learning so much about each other, and that it's cool that we'll never truly know each other because we're just going to keep encountering these new stories and these new things that we had no idea existed in ourselves. So I thought that was really fun. And I don't know, just to ditto to what you said, I like hope that I continue learning more about sex education as I keep growing, because I feel like I do need to learn more about it, especially my own body and what it could look like pregnant, what it could look like after pregnancy. I feel like I know nothing about menopause and I want to learn about that. So I just feel like there's so many things, and I'm just like, Google would help, but it would also scare me. So I need a book. I think I need a book. Yeah. But that's where I am. So yeah. I appreciate everyone watching for a ninth week in a row. It's really special and really amazing. And see y'all next week.